Clint Cosgrove, Rivals national recruiting analyst, here with another episode of Coach's Corner. We got a very special guest today with a unique path, guy, making waves in the business at Cincinnati. Max Stienecker, Director of Recruiting Strategy at University of Cincinnati. Max, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
I'm living the dream. You know, it's a cliche statement, but we truly are here at Cincinnati, and I'm fired up to be on. Thank you for having me. This is a blessing. It's an honor. Obviously, you've got an awesome cast of people coming on your show, and I think you do, Clint. Just wanted to shout you out, man. You do a great job. We really pay attention to those commitment videos and the way you're able to relate and talk with the kids. We think you do a really, really good job. So it's an honor. It's an honor. Excited to be on.
Man. Look at you. That means a lot to me. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's an honor to have you on because I would say, I do these commitment videos. I talk to a lot of the recruits, obviously, but it's not often that you hear a guy who works in the player personnel department and stuff like that, where kids are constantly bringing up their name. Your name is always brought up when I'm talking to recruits. You obviously connect with them in a special way. And so that was a big reason why I wanted to have you on. And I think you're a rising star in the profession. So, but let's start. I mean, I do want to get to how you got to where you are today, but I want to start with your role. I mean, Director of Recruiting Strategy isn't something that I see every day. Now I could be naive to it and I'm busy doing other things, but I don't know how many schools have that title. And just tell me about your role. It sounds like it's unique, and maybe the day in and day out of what it's like to be the Director of Recruiting Strategy at Cincinnati and working for a great guy like Coach Fickle.
Yeah. So we currently have a 3-person staff. So not a big staff. We just went to the National Recruiting Symposium back in August, and we saw some staffs walk in with 12 people, 16 people. We're like, okay. It's a little bit different. So what's great is my day-to-day is extremely unique. Every single day I walk in, I like to say I have an idea, a plan, but by the end of the day, every single day is a little bit different, which is one of the reasons why this job is awesome. But back to your Director of Recruiting Strategy deal, that is a title. Kind of the role of it is coming up with a strategy for the department, assisting the coaches kind of in their strategy of who we're recruiting, and also how we're recruiting them and how we plan on, helping assist them to see if they fit the University of Cincinnati.
That's pretty cool. Now, when you talk about the strategy, is this anything from official visits to graphics? Is it a little bit of everything? I know you said every day is different. I know my day, I always have a plan, and that plan is a lot different by 10 a.m. But, what are some of the things that you would say, really are the most demanding parts of your job that you spend your most time on?
Yeah. Well, we like to say you want to do what you're good at and what you like doing, right? And for me, I think that's some of the creative side, some of the graphics, the visits, but also building relationships with kids and being able to get to know them and their families. So a little bit of everything. Kind of anything from plan of attack of the apartment, plan of attack of graphics, plan of attack of content, of how we're going to recruit a kid, and all that stuff, how we're going to communicate with a kid.
That's pretty cool. The world's your oyster, and it sounds like, I know you've done a great job at doing it. Now we'll get to your success at Cincinnati because it's a pretty cool deal what you guys have done. It's unprecedented. Obviously you guys are going to the Big 12, but you went to the playoff as a Group of 5 school, and you compete with the biggest and the best, and you've got guys getting drafted first round, second round. I mean, you've got dudes all over the place. So that's obviously very special. But let's talk about the path to where you got to where you are today. And a lot of people don't realize not every coach, not every personnel guy, not everybody in this industry, had to play in the NFL or at the highest level. You actually started as a student assistant, and I know you worked for a pretty special coach. You were doing coaching. And then at the same time, you had a special group of other student assistants that worked with you. And it sounds like you guys were kind of, trailblazers with that. Just tell me about that experience and really the start of starting as a student assistant, who you worked with, the group of guys, and and how it got you to where you are today.
Yeah. So I knew coming out of high school, I was a little bit too small of a kid to get to the level that I wanted to play at. But I always knew I wanted to be in college football and football in some aspect. So I was like, let's try this coaching thing out. So I actually had a best friend who went to a rival high school. His name's Ty Van Fossen. And I went up with him on one of his visits to the University of Cincinnati. And I sat down with, at the time, defense coordinator and linebackers coach, Coach Freeman, Marcus Freeman. And I was like, hey, I really want to get into coaching. What do you think about potentially an opportunity of, if I enrolled here, being able to come along and kind of help you out and assist you? So he was like, yeah, we've never had a high school kid come to us, so this is a pretty unique deal. And from there, the next summer, I was there. I was helping pretty much do everything. And for the next 3 years as a student assistant, kind of became friends with this group and with the GAs, with two other kids, Caleb and Mick. And we kind of were known as the Nasty Boys. So before, before Coach Fickle knew our name, he knew us as the Nasty Boys. And we were pretty much the crew who, if something was needed, if there wasn't a whole lot of time or effort or something people may have thought that couldn't been done, well, we'll send the Nasty Boys at them. And we kind of built our, a reputation of being able to do whatever it was needed to do. In the coaching world, there's a lot of things to be done. So that's how we kind of got started. And then there was an opportunity after my third year as a student assistant to move down into recruiting with then Director of Recruiting Chad Bowden and also Pat Lambert, who's the Director of On-Campus Recruiting at the time. And then Coach Freeman left, went to Notre Dame, brought Chad with him, and then Pat and I were kind of the two guys left in recruiting. And Pat Lambert's someone who was a GA when I was a student assistant, and we've both been there since Coach Fickle's been here. And I can't thank him enough for kind of sticking with me and believing in me and giving me the opportunity to stay with them and really grow with them. He's someone I look up to because he works so hard. I mean, he's the hardest worker I think anyone knows, and he's a really, really good guy with really, really amazing energy. So that's kind of how I am here today, on the recruiting side of things.
That's awesome. I mean, your reputation obviously preceded you to get a nickname. Obviously, you guys are doing big things, and we all know. And I always tell this to anybody wanting to get into the business: there is always so much work. There's not enough hours in the day. I mean, if you wanted to, you could work 24/7. You still wouldn't want to, or still wouldn't be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But you also have to understand, at some point, the returns on the effort and the extra work and the paranoia that coaches have isn't always worth the effort and time and energy that you put into it. But your reputation, obviously, as the Nasty Boys, led to where you are today, and that's incredible. And to start out, I mean, you're the guy who you were, raised under, basically, in the college football coaching world, is now the head coach at Notre Dame. That just doesn't happen. You've been surrounded with some amazing coaches. How would you say that, being a guy around guys like Coach Fickle, Marcus Freeman, some of the other guys that you mentioned, how has that molded you into the person you are today in the recruiting world and outside of football?
Yeah. So, I've been very blessed here at the University of Cincinnati, like you said, to be around some amazing coaches and role models, and really being able to sit back and watch them and learn from them and listen to them is, really been the difference for me from a guy like Coach Fickle, who, everything he does from a philosophy standpoint and his work ethic and everything he believes in, that everything is earned, kind of a blue collar mentality has been a big deal for me. Coach Freeman, and really seeing him build relationships the way he did. Coach Gaduli, our offensive coordinator, same deal with him, of really showing, you can be really, really, really good at your job, but you can also be really, really, really good to everyone in the industry, in the program, and surrounding you. But just being able to learn from the countless, I could name countless amount of coaches, even in my short time that I've been fortunate enough to be around.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I'm just really impressed. I mean, to have the network that you have, and it's not like you've been doing this for 30 years, and you have a 30-year network, and a lot of that is because you put yourself in the right position. You surrounded yourself by the right people, and you guys have had a ton of success. And speaking of that success, I mean, you guys have had an unprecedented level of it. You guys. Obviously, you're going to the Big 12, and people don't think of you as a non-Power 5 program because you're a Power 5 team. You're a powerful team. You're playing in the playoffs. But, how do you accomplish what you guys have accomplished, as somebody would say an outlier to having the amount of success that you've had? What are some of the unique things that you guys do? What is different that you guys do? What is your favorite thing that you do when it comes to recruiting? And what do you think separates Cincinnati and, your staff, the environment that you've built and the success that you guys have had from other schools that, maybe like you?
Yeah. Well, to answer your first question, kind of the success we've been fortunate enough to have here at Cincinnati, I mean, a lot of it has to do with Coach Fickle, Coach Brady Collins, and the coaching staff being able to instill. I know it's an overused word, it's a cliche word, but the culture. And, I tell recruits all the time, everyone in America, right? Every team in America, you can ask them, how's your culture? And they'll probably look at you and say, our culture is great, right? Even though sometimes, the results don't show it on the field, but, I think we have something really, really special since day one back in 2017. Coach Fickle had a very, certain culture, and he believed in the blind faith that the players needed to buy into, and from that day he stuck to it, and on top of that, to put the work in, to get where we have gone as a program has been awesome. And then to answer your next question, as far as something unique as a recruiting department that we've kind of done for the past 2 to 3 years, I want to say ever since COVID, as we actually shifted offices. So we used to be in our athletic facility, and then during COVID, we shifted to a new location just to give us a little bit more space. And from that location, we built a man cave of football recruiting with boards everywhere, with footballs flying around everywhere. And we actually have 4 TVs lined in our recruiting office. And every Friday night, we'll come in and, as a staff, we'll watch. Whether that's recruits, we'll live stream our commits and be able to show, the recruits and the families that we're watching them. And it's a fun thing we do because we love ball. We personally can't be on the road. We wish we could be because we would be out there having fun. But because we're not, we like to take advantage of being able to watch multiple games at a time and see those kids and see them a lot of times in their senior years is really cool to us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any other staff that throws them up on the big screen and watches them together on Friday nights. That's pretty cool. That has to make quite the impression, not only on the kids but the families. I think that's a very unique thing. Who came up with that, and how did it start?
Yeah, it was actually so. Chad Bowden's the director of recruiting at Notre Dame. We had moved out. It was kind of his idea to move to this new location, and we started one Friday night, just kind of having fun. It was the first week of high school football. We're like, you know what? Let's watch some football. And then we quickly realized that, the players and their families, the recruits and their families, they loved it, right? They loved it, and they knew we were watching, and it meant so much to them because then it's a cliche deal of saying people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But when families see that you're taking your time out of your Friday night to pay attention to that kid's journey, his Friday night success, it means something to him. It means something to him. So, yeah.
No question. I mean, I think, what you said, you do hear it a lot. People don't care how much you care until you show them, through your actions and everything like that. you're actually putting in the work. Like, you're not just
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, great job," or sending out a graphic. Like, you're
Yeah.
following it. And I mean, maybe that's part of part of your guys' evaluation process as well. I mean, obviously it's fun. I mean, that sounds like a
Yeah.
blast. That sounds like
Yeah.
a blast. But you know, and that brings me, I guess, to another thing that I want to discuss with you is the process, the evaluation process, the identification. Because yeah, I mean, now you guys are getting big time recruits. You're getting 4 stars, all over the place, highly rated recruiting classes and everything like that. But at the beginning, I'm sure probably wasn't like that. When you develop a program, when you win, it obviously catches people attention, and you have a very magnetic head coach. Success speaks for itself. Obviously, I mean, Maximus, you're incredibly genuine, and I can see why players connect with you and other guys that I know on your staff. But tell me about the evaluation process, the identification process, maybe your order of operations, and how you're able to not only find top players, whether they're 5 stars or 2 stars, but then really say these are the guys we're going to go after, and then in turn or in the end, land these guys. Tell me a little bit about that, because I am so interested in knowing how you guys have built the powerhouse that you have, over these years, with a former, what was a group of 5 school, even though that doesn't matter at the end of the day, but perception's reality sometimes. You're a Power 5 school now, you're playing in the championship or in the playoff. But I got to know, how did you guys make this happen? How do you get guys like Sauce Gardner, who are, he was a 5.53 star with us, but you
Mhm.
saw something special in him. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Clint, I mean, I would love to give you a simple answer. And the truth is, it's not that simple. But being able, Pat and I have been here for 6 years since Coach Fickle's been here. So we've been able to kind of see through trial and error what works, right? What works, because the most important thing to us is that locker room, right? And we like to consider ourselves Coach Fickle's gatekeepers to that locker room, to that culture. And over 6 years, you learn really what works in Coach Fickle's culture, but also work here at the University of Cincinnati and who fits. And so much a part of the evaluation, it's fun to talk about, twitch and change of direction and size and speed and 40 and track times. It's cool to talk about that, but so much a part of the evaluation for us are the intangible things. Being able to get around kids, get to know them, build relationships with them and their family. And, we have a pretty good feel of what has worked here at Cincinnati. And I think that's where we kind of have an advantage of having so much continuity and having such a well-defined culture that we know exactly what we're looking for. And we tell kids all the time, just like they're out there looking for, hopefully their best fit, we're also out there looking for the kids who necessarily fit us. So we're not afraid to, not recruit off of exposure and offers and that type of deal if it's a character fit, and if the kid, we have a really good inclination that no matter what, this kid's going to be successful in our program.
Yeah. Well, you guys have obviously done a great job with doing that. Do you mind if I want to touch on 2 kids in particular, just because, I came up scouting them and knew them. And I also thought that they were very good players. But the first 2 that kind of really jump out are 2 guys who got drafted this past year. Obviously, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, and then Alec Pierce, who's I'm from Chicago. I used to go to Glenbard West, watch him play. He was a tall, skinny kid, but he could run. And then obviously Sauce, I mean, he had that dog factor from a young age. But let's start with Sauce. Tell me about that recruiting process. And did you guys know he was going to be this good? I mean, you can never predict that a guy's going to be, the type of player that he is. But
Yeah.
did you have any inclination? Like, did you know we got something special here? And how
Yeah.
did that recruitment go?
Yeah. So I wasn't exactly a part of the recruitment. That was actually back when I was a student assistant. So I can't and don't want to speak too much on that. But what you can tell and what you can learn from those 2 guys are the intangible things that we just hit on. Is when they came in as freshmen, they were a little bit different, right? They were a little bit different. Sauce Ahmad would be up on our 7th floor after practice, when all the players are gone home, when the coaches are back to game planning, he would be up there on the clicker just watching. And at the time, to me, that was, just a freshman, who sometimes would ask for my help to get the right play thing on. And then Alec Pierce, the same deal. He had all these crazy athletic traits, and a lot of people throughout the recruiting process didn't really know what he was. And when he got here, I don't think we knew what he was still. Right, he started as a receiver, a developmental receiver, and then switched over to defense. In the spring after his freshman year, and eventually came back, and he just was a worker. He was a worker, and he's a very, very intelligent kid. He had the intangibles. He wanted to be really, really good, just like Sauce. They wanted to be great, and they put the work in to do it. So from me, at the time as a student assistant, I was able to learn, okay, what were those intangibles, because they're both their recruiting were very unique, not highly recruited kids. A lot of people weren't sure what position Alec Pierce was. A lot of people didn't know what Sauce, his ceiling. So it was fun to learn from those.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are obviously been a big part of your success. They're already doing big things in the league, which is pretty incredible. Now, we didn't really touch on this beforehand, so hopefully I'm not throwing you a curveball. But, I know you guys have looked at yourself as a Power 5 program because you've played like a Power 5 program, and you're going into the Big 12 next. So, that's been a long time coming. You've been beating the butts of other teams for a long time. I know if I was head coach and I found out that my AD scheduled Cincinnati in the preseason, I'd be pretty darn upset. And you're one of the last teams that I'd want to play. As you guys make the transition into the Big 12, are things going to change? How do you see that transition going? How do you see the recruiting process? I mean, obviously you guys have an established culture. You have an order of operations that's been very successful. Do you change anything, or do you just keep on going with what works? Tell me a little bit about that. And maybe there isn't much to it, but I'm very interested to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, we know, as a program, and the coaches and the players and everyone involved, right now the focus is going to win the American Conference Championship this year. But the flip side of that, as someone in the recruiting and personnel world, we know we're preparing to go play and compete for Big 12 championships. So really, as a philosophy standpoint, we don't want to change a whole lot. We don't. We believe what we got going is working for us, right? And some of the things that we'll get because of going to the Big 12 will open maybe a few doors, as Coach Fickle likes to say. Back then, we probably had to beat the doors down, but we like to think some of those doors will open for us. But at the end of the day, we're a developmental program. We're a developmental program, and we're going to continue to bring in high school athletes and develop them on and off the field. But also, our advantage is building relationships and being genuine. And that's been our relationship for the past 5 years, and that's going to continue to be our relationship is, it might sound cheesy, it might sound corny, but winning with people, right? And winning relationships. And that's just like anything, right? It's just like anything. It's the people you surround yourself with. So we're not going to change a whole lot from a philosophy standpoint. We're going to keep being the University of Cincinnati, but we know there's a lot of work to do from now until then.
Yeah. Obviously not much needs to change. I mean, it's almost just a change in name. I mean, obviously it's going to be a new landscape, a new conference, new teams, new coaches, new game plans. But you're still Cincinnati, and you guys have had a ton of success, and, you touch on culture, you touch on continuity. What do you think it is about your culture at Cincinnati? Obviously, you've said that, it's part of the recruiting process. You're not just looking at who runs the fastest, who's the biggest, who's the, the best, biggest dog out there. I mean, part of your identification and evaluation is making sure they're a good culture fit. Tell me about the culture that has been established, obviously a winning culture. But what really strikes you as being, special about your culture? And why do so many coaches, I mean, your guys have opportunities to go places every year. Well, why is there been such continuity? A guy like Coach Fickle, I'm sure every year his phone's ringing off the hook, but he wants to be at Cincinnati. And, he's proven that you can do whatever you want there.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So, the culture that Coach Fickle has set, I like to say all the time that every program is kind of like a company where that program takes on the personality of its head coach, right? And the program has taken on the personality of Luke Fickle and Coach Fickle, and that's a blue collar, a wrestler mentality. Everything is earned, and we say around here, tough and nasty. And those are the kind of the things that, yeah, we're going to live by. But it's also, our job, we're going to recruit the hell out of it. So we're going to recruit those things. And to speak to, the continuity we've been so fortunate to have with so many great coaches and staff members has a lot to do with Coach Fickle, but also the Fickle family. Amy Fickle is as vital to the program as anyone. She's awesome. And she does such a great job of really involving everyone's family. And I feel like when you're able to, involve the families like she does, make them feel a part of it, people want to stay. They want to be around their family. And for me, myself, that Coach Fickle wants to build this thing here. Like you said, he's had opportunities. There's no hiding. That's not news. But he's here to stay. He's got a family. He's got family here in Cincinnati. He's got 6 kids, one in the program. So you're confident that what you're working for, you're going to be here for.
For sure. I think you touched on something really, really important there. And it's a very underrated aspect of building a program, but the head coach's wife. I grew up in coaching. My dad was Barry Alvarez's defensive coordinator. He's been a number of places since, but he was at Wisconsin for 13, 14 years. Cindy Alvarez was awesome. There was always stuff. The families were always involved. And I really think that's an underrated aspect. And I'm happy you touched on that, because a lot of what I like to do with this is kind of show people that, coaches aren't much different than anybody else. Yes, they might have a high profile job. Some of them make some pretty good money and they're in the spotlight, and people, almost look at them, in a way they look at, celebrities, but at the same time, they're real people with real families. I've talked, with some of your guys' recruits, and, they mention Coach Fickle's family. They mention the kids, just as they mention you. And so that's pretty cool. And, I really want to highlight that, because that hit home with me, especially with my mom being a coach's wife, and, some of the best staffs that they've been on, some of the most success they've had. The coaches' wives are a huge part of that. I mean, the recruiting, like being, like welcoming recruits in and connecting with parents. And that's really an underrated part, of the process, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, Max, you're a seasoned vet as far as what you've been doing and how long you've been doing it, because you started doing it young as well. You started out as the linebacker guy. You fell in love with recruiting. Tell me when you first knew I know you wanted in high school. This is incredible that you used a friend's visit to work your way into coaching. I mean, that's genius. But was it before then that you knew you wanted to coach? Did you have coaches in the family? What is it that drew you to the profession? And, not that you went out of coaching because you're in recruiting, but what was the path just kind of, I want to be in this profession and I'm not sure what I want to do yet? Or was it, I want to coach, and then you fell in love with recruiting? So I guess this is a multifaceted, me rambling question, but I think part of the reason I want to know this is I'm very interested to know your path, because I'm just so impressed by you. And then the other thing is, I think it can really lay a blueprint and give advice to guys who, are in a similar position to you, that, they love ball, they want to be in it. And they might not, I still don't know what's going on in life. But I know I want to be in ball, and I've had a bunch of different roles in it. But just tell me about that. When did you know? Uh, was it hard to leave the coaching and then going into recruiting, or was it, you just loved it and so you were good
Yeah.
to go? Like, just tell
Yeah.
me about all of that in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew from a young age, I love football, right? I mean, I think with anything, it starts with a passion and a little bit of a obsession of, my favorite thing still to this day in life is college game day. I loved it, but from probably the age of 13, I probably have notebooks and notebooks full around at my parents' house of just X's and O's, right? I was drawing power, superpower, cover three. I had no idea what I was drawing at the time, but it just started with that. I had that opportunity to go the University of Cincinnati, Coach Fickle's program, and then I learned really fast, really a year and a half, maybe 2 years into it, that everyone here played college football. And I looked around. I said, "Yeah, I'm facing an uphill battle here." So I knew I needed to create more, I would say, value or of a niche, or if I wanted to get into coaching somehow, something had to be done. So for me, and the opportunity that kind of just presented itself at the time in recruiting, I was like, well, this is the opportunity, to really make yourself a little bit different, to stand out, is have somewhat of a recruiting background. So I went into recruiting thinking, you know what, this is going to give me more value as a coach. And then I got into it, and I was fortunate enough to be under, two really, really fun guys, and just learn from there. And I fell in love with it. And I think one of the reasons I fell in love with it, being a little bit younger, being able to relate to these kids and build relationships where I think, these recruits and these kids, we're able to have conversations that they might not want to have with necessarily a coach,
Hmm.
right? Because they think in their mind, for a lot of them, that they're always being evaluated. Whereas for me, I'm just Max, so they can open up to me and trust me on a little bit different of a level. But yeah, to answer your question, that's it all starts with a lot of things, a passion and an obsession, and then just being able to figure out that I don't really have much of a future here. I can beat my head into a wall as a GA and try really, really hard, but it's tough. It's really, really hard. And it's even harder with no playing experience, in college. So it pivoted and I just fell in love.
Yeah. Hey, you're looking at a guy who pivoted as well. I went from coaching to scouting to the media now to getting to talk with, guys like you on a Coach's Corner podcast, which has been incredible. And I think it's really cool. I mean, when you talk about how you got to where you are and what you're doing, you're always crediting other people, but at the same time, Max, I mean, you've created a lot of opportunity for yourself. You've identified people that you want to surround yourself by, and I think that's really cool and a unique thing. And for you to just be where you're at already is phenomenal. And I've kept a lot of your time. I understand that, but I want to finish with two more things. And I don't know what order to go in, so let's start with this. If you could give any piece of advice to whether it's a young guy who played the NFL or a guy who's never even, played football in their entire life, but have a passion for it. You talk about a passion, which is obviously necessary to have success in anything, but especially in this world where you dedicate your time and your entire life to it. You live football to reach the level you're at and to have the success that you've had. What is the advice that you could give to a young person, no matter what their background is, if they have aspirations to be a college coach at a high level like you are, or to be in recruiting? What would be the biggest thing that you could tell them?
Yeah. Um, the biggest thing I think is people are always going to say it's about who you know and the relationships, right? That's always going to be kind of the cliche deal. But really finding that first opportunity. And when you have that opportunity, be willing to do whatever, right? Still to this day, no job too small. And when you get a task, do it really, really well. So, whoever's giving you that task can trust you a little bit more, and you do it really, really well again, and they give you more and more. At some point where you're doing a lot, and that's how you create value in this industry. And when you get to a certain level, even for the top coaches, it's about relationships, right? Building really, really good relationships, and the key of that is communication. Being able to communicate with, not just talking and texting, but listening and with your verbal cues, and having that foot in the door, being able to kill it, and then obviously building good relationships with the people around you. I was fortunate enough. The best thing I ever did was choose Cincinnati because Coach Fickle, surrounded himself with really, really good people, and I just happened to be there, kind of as a beneficiary of all of them.
Well, and a big part of it as well, Max. That old nasty boy mentality. I love that there's no job, too small for you. You've obviously worked your butt off to get to where you are. You're an integral part of, Cincinnati's success. And I know that from talking to the recruits, because I talked and do the commitment videos with a lot of the guys that you guys recruit. So
Yep.
I think your story is really cool. Your path is very unique. And I also think that there's more guys than people realize who have gotten their foot in the door by beating the door down, kind of like you said with Coach Fickle when you guys were first, building this monster. It just very impressed with the way you've gone about your business. And I think it gives hope to a lot of other guys that maybe didn't play in the NFL or didn't play at the Power 5 level, that have a passion, that have a love, that want to coach. I mean, you're a perfect example of the blueprint of how to have success and how to, find your way into this industry, whether you are born with the connections, like somebody like me. I was lucky. A lot of people call it a nepotism business, and it's always like, oh, he's hiring his friends and stuff. But at the same time, they don't realize you're with these people 24 hours a day. You have to trust them with your life. Your life, your paycheck is basically in those who you surround yourselves with, not only the kids and the players, but the other coaches. It's in their mouth, and that's your livelihood. And so let's finish with this. And I can only imagine the goals that you guys have at Cincinnati. Obviously, winning the ACC or AAC this year is goal number one. Tell me about the future of Cincinnati football, moving into the Big 12. What is next for Cincinnati? Where are you guys going? What are you trying to accomplish? And are there any limitations to what you guys have done or can do? Because you've proven a lot of people wrong, that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If you've got the right staff, the right players, you identify and evaluate the right people and develop the right culture, the sky's the limit. What's next for Cincinnati, Maximus?
Yeah. So right now we're fired up, to go win that American Conference Championship, hopefully for the last time, working towards that. But like you said, we're going to the Big 12, and kind of how we say it to recruits right now is, last year we were a top 10 team, right? Finished third, fourth, however you want to look at it. The year prior, we were a top 10 team, right? Finished fifth, sixth, however you want to say it. But the truth is, we don't want to be a top 10 team anymore. We want to be a top 10 program. A top 10 program. So we say all the time, what's the difference between a top 10 team and a top 10 program? For us, number one thing is consistency. And our consistency is built through our culture, built through our head coach, right? And we know Coach Fickle's had opportunities to go elsewhere, and he stayed here because he wants to build it. So we know that consistency is going to be there, being a top 10 team every single year. And the number two thing is the resources. And I think going to the Big 12 is going to help us, in that realm, but also there's a lot of things going on here at Cincinnati, from having 9 guys drafted to hopefully here we'll have a brand new indoor facility. We just got a brand new team room, brand new locker room. So there's a lot of things going on. And I know I went on a little recruiting pitch there. But right
as you
now,
should, you got the platform, let it out.
It's an easy sell right now. It's an awesome place. And I would tell, a lot of people across, America, right? You can do everything you want to do right here at Cincinnati. You can accomplish all your goals, your dreams, and aspirations right here at Cincinnati. Whether that's playing the college football playoff, whether that's be developed and play on Sundays, whether that's earn that degree, whatever it may be, you can do it all right here. And I think it's a special, special time, and it's a very important time in our program, because these recruiting classes, these kids who we bring in, are going to help dictate and take us to that next level.
Man, Max, can't thank you enough for coming on. For all the recruits, fans, whatever it may be, Max Stienecker, you can find him on Twitter. Do you know your exact handle?
I don't. Something Maximus with a 347 and an underscore somewhere in there.
Okay. Well, and it's on the Cincinnati website as well. But you're wise beyond your years. You've obviously been surrounded by some great people who have really developed you, but you've put in the work, and I'm beyond impressed, man. I wish you the best of luck in the future. Can't thank you enough for coming on, and tell Coach Fickle and the SID I really appreciate having for you coming on and sitting down with me for Coach's Corner, man.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on, and I was glad to be able to represent the University of Cincinnati. You're the man.
You're the man. No, you did a great job representing them. They should be very proud. You should be very proud of yourself, and I look forward to see what you have coming in the future, man, because I see big things.